They were old, not old like mountains or rivers, not old like the stars that burned in the black sky. They were older than most things in the galaxy. Their civilization had existed for 3 billion years. They had watched young stars explode and die. They had seen planets form from dust and gas. They had guided hundreds of younger species toward peace and wisdom. Every species in the galaxy respected some even them. They had created the Galactic Accord, a great agreement that brought 1,000 different worlds together. Under their guidance, wars had ended. Trade had flourished. The galaxy had become a place of order and cooperation. But there was one strange law written into the accord, one rule that no one understood, one secret that they refused to explain. The law was simple: no vessel shall approach the Sol system, no contact shall be made with its third planet, no species shall attempt communication with the beings who lived there. For thousands of years, other species had asked why. They never answered. They simply said the law existed for good reasons. They said some knowledge was too dangerous to share, and because they were wise and ancient, everyone accepted this. Until humans arrived. The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the largest structure ever built. It floated in space between 3 star systems, a massive sphere of crystal and metal where representatives from every known species gathered to discuss matters of importance. Today, the hall was full. Over 800 different species had sent their ambassadors. The air itself seemed heavy with tension. Ambassador stood at the center of the speaking platform. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and gray hair that he kept short. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Behind him stood his small team. Lieutenant, a woman with a calm face but watchful eyes. Wu, the ship's engineer who looked uncomfortable in formal clothes. The young linguist who could speak 40 alien languages. And the security officer whose hand never strayed far from his weapon. Looked around the massive hall. Creatures of every shape and size looked back at him. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no solid form at all, but all of them shared one thing: curiosity about the strange beings from the forbidden planet. "I am Ambassador," he said. His voice was steady and clear. "I speak for the people of Earth. We have traveled far to stand before you today. We have built ships that cross the darkness between stars. We have found you our neighbors in this vast galaxy, and we come with a simple question." He paused and looked directly at the section where the representatives sat. They were tall beings, thin and pale, with large dark eyes that held the weight of countless years. Their leader was named, an ancient creature who had lived for over 50,000 years. "Why," continued, "are we forbidden? Why has our world been marked as dangerous? Why have you avoided us for so long?" The hall erupted in whispers. This was the question everyone wanted to ask, but no one had dared to speak. The younger species looked at waiting for an answer. Rose slowly from his seat. His movements were careful and graceful, like a tree bending in a gentle wind. For a long moment he simply stared at. His dark eyes revealed nothing. Then, without speaking a single word, turned and walked out of the hall. The silence that followed was absolute. In 3 billion years of recorded history, no had ever refused to speak at the assembly. They were known for their patience, their wisdom, their willingness to explain and guide. They never walked away. Until now. The hall exploded into chaos. Species shouted at each other. Some demanded explanations. Others called for calm. The representative, a small being covered in blue fur, screamed that this was an insult to all of them. The ambassador, a massive creature with 4 arms, laughed darkly and said they had finally shown their true nature. But was not watching the chaos. She was watching the door through which had disappeared. She had spent her entire military career learning to read people, to understand what they really meant beneath their words and actions. And she had seen something in dark eyes that troubled her deeply. It was not anger, it was not pride, it was not even contempt. It was fear. Later that night, The human delegation gathered in their small ship docked at the edge of the assembly station. The ship was called the Horizon, and it had carried them across impossible distances to reach this place. Now it felt very small compared to the vessels of the other species. "That could have gone better," Wu said. He was sitting on a metal crate, pulling apart some piece of machinery as he always did when he was nervous. "Did you see the size of their ships? Some of them are bigger than our entire moon." "Size is not everything," said quietly. She was reading through her notes on behavior, trying to find any record of similar incidents. "The question is why they reacted that way. They are supposed to be beyond emotion. They are supposed to be perfectly logical." "Supposed to be," grunted. He stood by the door, arms crossed over his chest. "People always supposed to be something, never are." Stood by the window looking out at the stars. "Lieutenant," he said without turning around, "you saw something, tell us." Hesitated. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts, but what she had seen seemed impossible. "The representative was afraid," she said finally. "Not angry, not proud, afraid. Actually, truly afraid." "Afraid of what?" Wu asked. "Of us. We just figured out space travel like 200 years ago. They have been around for billions of years. What could we possibly do to scare them?" "I do not know," admitted, "but I intend to find out." Finally turned from the window. His face was hard with determination. "They know something about us, something they have hidden from the entire galaxy, something that scares a species that has seen the birth and death of stars." He looked at each of his crew members in turn. "We need to find out what that something is." Hao asked. "They will not talk to us. Their archives are closed to outsiders. There is forbidden to visitors." "Then we go somewhere else," said. "Somewhere that deals in forbidden things. Somewhere that trades in secrets." Wu stopped fiddling with his machinery. "You mean Lumen Prime?" Nodded. "I mean Lumen Prime." The station known as Lumen Prime was legendary. It existed in neutral space, claimed by no empire and protected by none. It was a place where criminals and scholars walked the same halls, where secrets were bought and sold like fruit in a market, where the forbidden became possible if you had enough to trade. It was also extremely dangerous. "Are you sure about this?" asked. "Lumen Prime is not exactly friendly to newcomers, and humans are very new to this galaxy." "I am sure of nothing," replied. "But I know this. They have hidden the truth about humanity for thousands of years. They have marked our planet as forbidden. They have kept us isolated from the rest of the galaxy. And when we finally found our way here on our own, their greatest leader ran away rather than explain why." He moved to the pilot's chair and began entering coordinates. "Whatever secret they are keeping, it is about us, about what we are, about what we might become, and I will not rest until I know the truth." The Horizon's engines hummed to life. Outside the window, the stars began to shift as the ship turned toward its new destination. Somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between civilizations, the answers waited, and humanity, young and stubborn and fearless, was going to find them, whether the galaxy was ready or not. Lumen Prime appeared out of the darkness like a wound in space. The station was ugly. There was no other word for it. It had been built over thousands of years, piece by piece, with no plan and no design. Towers stuck out at strange angles. Docking bays had been welded onto other docking bays. Lights blinked in patterns that made no sense. The whole thing looked like it might fall apart at any moment. But it never did. Lumen Prime had existed for longer than most civilizations. It would probably exist long after they were gone. "Beautiful, is it not?" Wu said sarcastically as he guided the Horizon toward an empty docking port. "Really makes you feel welcome." "We are not here to feel welcome," reminded him. "We are here to find information." Checked her weapon one more time. It was a small energy pistol, not very powerful but easy to hide. "Remember the rules," she said to the others. "Stay together. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Do not insult anyone. And if someone offers you a drink, do not take it." "Why not?" asked. "Because half the drinks here are poisonous to humans. The other half will make you tell all your secrets." The docking clamps locked onto their ship with a heavy clunk. The airlock hissed open, and the smell of Lumen Prime rushed in. It was a strange smell, a mixture of machine oil, alien spices, and something burning. Not unpleasant, but definitely not pleasant either. They stepped out into the station. The main corridor was crowded with beings of every species. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 4, some on none at all. Vendors shouted their goods from small stalls. Creatures argued over prices. Someone was singing in a language that sounded like breaking glass. Overhead, holographic advertisements flickered and danced, selling everything from starship parts to illegal weapons to information about anyone in the galaxy. "How do we find what we are looking for?" asked. His eyes moved constantly, watching for threats. "We ask," said simply. He walked up to the nearest vendor, a creature that looked like a pile of rocks with eyes. "Excuse me, I am looking for information about the old information. Very old." The rock creature's eyes all turned to look at him. Then it laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. "Information, old information," it laughed again. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human. They do not like people asking about their secrets." "I am not asking this," said calmly. "I am asking you." The creature stopped laughing. "I do not have what you seek, but I know someone who might. 4th level, section 9, look for the blue door, ask for, tell her that sent you." It paused. "And human, bring something valuable to trade, does not accept standard currency." They found the blue door after an hour of walking through narrow corridors and climbing broken stairs. The 4th level was darker than the others, quieter. The beings here moved with purpose and spoke in whispers. This was where the serious business happened. The door itself was ordinary, just a metal sheet painted blue, but noticed small devices built into the frame. Scanners, weapons detectors, probably things she could not even identify. Knocked. The door slid open to reveal a small room filled with screens and data storage devices. In the center of the room sat a creature unlike any they had seen. She was humanoid but covered in short silver fur. Her eyes were large and golden, like a cat's eyes. She wore simple gray clothes and many rings on her long fingers. "I am," she said. Her voice was soft but sharp. "And you are humans, the forbidden ones." She smiled, showing small pointed teeth. "Please sit. I have been wondering when you would come." There were no chairs, so they remained standing, stepped forward. "Sent us. We are looking for information about why they have forbidden contact with our world." "Yes, yes," waved a hand. "The great mystery, the question that has kept 1,000 scholars awake at night." She tilted her head, studying them with those golden eyes. "Do you know why no one has found the answer?" "Because they hide it well," suggested. "No," said. "Because no one really wants to know. They are the foundation of our galaxy. They created the Accord. They keep the peace. If people learned that they are hiding something terrible, what would happen to that peace?" She stood and walked to a large screen on the wall. "But you humans do not care about peace, do you? You care about truth, even if the truth burns." "We care about knowing who we are," said. "They have decided something about humanity, something that makes them afraid. We have a right to know what that is." Studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well, but first payment. I do not want your credits or your technology. I want something else." "What?" asked, her hand moving slightly toward her weapon. "A promise," said. "When you learn the truth, and you will learn it, you must come back here and tell me. They are an old species, but we are not as old as we have always wondered what they hide. I want to know." Considered this. It seemed like a small price. Agreed. Smiled again and touched the screen. Data began to flow across it, ancient symbols and images that made gasp with excitement. "This is a fragment of history. It is older than most stars. I have spent 50 years trying to translate it. I have managed only a small portion." "How did you get this?" Wu asked. "They are careful, but they are not perfect. Over 3 billion years, things get lost, things get stolen, things get forgotten." Zoomed in on a section of text. "This fragment tells of the first expedition to your solar system. It was 200,000 of your years ago." The room went very quiet. 200,000 years, repeated slowly. "That was before human civilization existed. We were barely more than animals." "Yes," said, "they found you when you were young, they studied you. They ran their tests and simulations as they do with all developing species." She paused, and then something happened, something that changed everything. "What?" demanded. "What did they find?" Pointed to a section of translated text on the screen, stepped forward to read it, her lips moving silently. Then her face went pale. "What does it say?" asked. Swallowed hard. "It says, we found them first. We saw what they were. We buried the truth so the galaxy could exist in peace." The words hung in the air like smoke. Wu let out a long breath, felt a chill run down her spine. Even, who rarely showed emotion, looked disturbed. "What does that mean?" asked. "What did they see? What are we?" "That is where my translation ends," admitted. "The rest of the fragment is in a code I cannot break, but I can tell you one thing." She leaned closer, her golden eyes bright with something that might have been fear or might have been excitement. "Whatever they found on your world, it was not what they expected. They are the oldest in species in the galaxy. They have seen everything. Nothing surprises them." She tapped the screen and it went dark. "But you surprised them. You scared them. And they have spent 200,000 years making sure no one else would learn why." Stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to his team. "We need to find more. We need to find the rest of this history." "The only place that might have more information is the itself," said, "and that is forbidden to all outsiders." "Then we need to find a who will talk to us," said, "the one from the assembly." He walked away rather than speak publicly, but maybe he would speak privately. "You want to approach a elder directly," laughed, but it was not a mocking laugh. It was an impressed one. "You humans really are as bold as the stories say." Looked at the blank screen where the ancient text had been displayed. "We found them first. We saw what they were." He repeated the words slowly, tasting their weight. "I want to know what they saw. I want to know what we are." He turned and walked toward the door. The others followed. At the threshold he stopped and looked back at. "We will return," he said, "and when we do, we will have answers." Watched them go with those strange golden eyes. When the door closed behind them, she turned back to her screens and began to work. The humans had no idea what they were getting into. But then again, neither did the rest of the galaxy. Things were about to change. She could feel it. The message arrived 3 days after they left Lumen Prime. It came through a channel that should not have existed, using a code that had never seen before. But when she translated it, the meaning was clear. "It is from," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "The elder he wants to meet." Looked up from the navigation charts he had been studying. "Where?" "A moon called Ash. It orbits a dead star in neutral space. No one lives there. No one goes there." Paused. "He says to come alone." "That is not happening," said immediately. "It could be a trap." "Everything could be a trap," replied. "But we have no choice. This is the first who has ever been willing to speak to us. We cannot let this opportunity pass." "Then we all go," said firmly. "If it is a trap, we face it together." The moon called Ash lived up to its name. It was gray and lifeless, covered in fine dust that had once been mountains. The star it orbited had died long ago, leaving only a cold, dark mass that gave no light. The horizon landed on a flat plain near a set of coordinates that it provided. Outside the ship, there was nothing but silence and dust. "Sensors show one life sign approximately 200 meters north," Wu reported from his station. "No weapons, no other ships. He appears to be alone. Put on his environmental suit. With me. The rest of you stay here and keep the engines warm. If anything goes wrong, leave immediately. Sir began. That is an order, said. Humanity needs to know what they are hiding. If we do not return, you must find another way. Followed out of the airlock and onto the gray surface of ash. Their boots left deep prints in the ancient dust. Above them, the dead star was a black circle against the stars, an absence of light that seemed to pull at their eyes. They found standing on a small hill, looking up at the darkness. He did not turn as they approached. He simply stood there, tall and thin and impossibly old, his pale form almost glowing against the gray landscape. Ambassador, he said finally. His voice was soft and carried a weight of years that could barely imagine. Thank you for coming. You wanted to talk, said, so talk. Turned to face them. His dark eyes, which had seemed empty at the assembly, were now filled with something else. Pain, ancient, endless pain. I have lived for 50,000 years, he said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve and die. I have carried memories that would crush most minds. He paused. But the memories I carry about your world are the heaviest of all. What memories? Asked. What did you find on Earth? Raised one long hand. First, you must understand something about my people. They do not simply remember the past. We carry it within us. Every possesses the genetic memories of every ancestor who came before. When I close my eyes, I can see through the eyes of my great-grandmother, 10,000 years ago. I can feel what my ancestors felt when they first discovered space travel, 3 billion years in the past. He lowered his hand. This is how we have survived so long. This is how we have accumulated so much wisdom. We do not forget. We cannot forget. Every experience, every lesson, every discovery is preserved in our blood and passed to our children. Nodded slowly. So you remember the first expedition to Earth? Yes, the word came out like a sigh. I remember it as clearly as if I had been there myself, and I wish I could forget. The wind picked up, sending swirls of gray dust across the plain. Seemed to shrink into himself, his tall form bending slightly as if under a great weight. Tell us, said gently, whatever it is we need to know. Was silent for a long moment, then he began to speak. 200,000 of your years ago, an expedition arrived in your solar system. This was standard procedure. We catalog all developing species. We observe them, study them, predict their futures. We have done this millions of times. And what did you find? Pressed. We found a small blue world covered mostly in water. We found a species of primates that had recently begun walking upright. They used simple tools. They lived in small groups. They hunted and gathered and fought with each other over territory. His voice grew quieter. They were unremarkable. In every way, they appeared to be a typical developing species. But something was different, said. Yes, turned to face the dead star. We ran our simulations. We always run simulations. Based on their genetic structure, their behavior patterns, their environmental conditions, we predicted their future. Every model, every calculation, every analysis came to the same conclusion. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. You should have died. The words hung in the cold air, felt her stomach tighten. His face remained calm, but his hands had clenched into fists. What do you mean? Asked. I mean exactly what I said. Our simulations predicted that your species would be extinct within 50,000 years. You were too aggressive, too violent, too divided. Your population was too small, your intelligence too limited. 100 different factors pointed to the same outcome. You would destroy yourselves long before you ever left your planet. Turned back to face them. We marked your world as non-viable, we recorded our findings, and we left. But we did not die, said. No, you did not die. His voice carried something like wonder and something like terror. We returned after 10,000 years, as is our custom, to confirm our predictions, and you were still there, not just surviving but growing. Your population had increased. Your tools had improved. You had begun to develop language and art and culture. So we surprised you, said. Species survive predictions sometimes, do they not? Sometimes, yes. We adjusted our models and ran new simulations. The new predictions said you would be extinct within another 20,000 years. Your ice ages would kill you. Your diseases would kill you. Your constant wars would kill you. Shook his head slowly. We returned in 20,000 years. You were still there, stronger than before. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold moon. You kept coming back. Every 10,000 years, confirmed. Every time we ran new simulations. Every time the simulations predicted your extinction. Every time we returned to find you had not only survived but accelerated. You developed agriculture. You built cities. You created mathematics and philosophy and science. His dark eyes found and held them. You were not following the rules. You were not following any rules. Every model we created failed. Every prediction proved wrong. It was as if the universe itself was bending around your species, allowing you to do things that should have been impossible. And this frightened you, said. It was not a question. Yes, his voice broke slightly. We have observed millions of species across billions of years. We have seen every pattern of evolution, every path of development, every possible outcome. But we had never seen anything like humanity. You should not exist. Your survival violates every law of probability we have ever established. The wind died down, and the silence of the dead moon seemed to press in around them. We are not monsters, said. We are just people. We live, we die, we try to be better. What is so terrifying about that? Looked at her with those ancient eyes full of pain. You do not understand, he said. The universe follows patterns. Everything follows patterns. Species rise and fall according to rules that we have spent 3 billion years learning. But you do not follow the patterns. You break them. You rewrite them. He raised his thin hands to his face, and we have no idea why. Stepped closer to the old. What exactly did your simulations predict for us? What did you think we would become? Lowered his hands. Our best predictions suggested you would be a mid-level species at most. Tool users, perhaps space travelers eventually, but limited, contained, controllable. And now we do not know. We cannot predict your future because you have already done the impossible 1,000 times. You split the atom before you cured basic diseases. You reached your moon within a single century of powered flight. You created machines that think faster than you do, then kept thinking anyway. His voice dropped to a whisper. You are not following evolution, Ambassador. You are writing it, and we do not understand how. The truth fell over like a wave. They were not afraid of humanity because of anything they had done. They were afraid because they could not understand what humanity was. And the oldest species in the galaxy did not deal well with things they could not understand. Your secret, said slowly, the thing you have hidden from the galaxy, it is not about what we did, it is about what we are. Yes, admitted. We told the galaxy your world was forbidden because of some ancient danger, but the truth is simpler and more terrible. He met thighs. We do not know what you are. We have watched you for 200,000 years, and we still do not know. That is our secret. That is our shame. The great and ancient, the guides of the galaxy, look upon humanity and see only mystery. He spread his thin arms wide, a gesture of surrender. And that mystery terrifies us more than any enemy ever could. They stood on that dead moon for what felt like hours. The silence between them was thick and heavy, filled with the weight of what had revealed. Finally, broke it. That cannot be everything, she said. Her voice was hard, demanding. You do not hide an entire species from the galaxy just because you cannot predict their future. There has to be more. Did not answer immediately. He turned away from them and looked up at the black circle of the dead star. His thin shoulders seemed to sag even further. "You are right," he said at last. "There is more. There is always more." He turned back to face them. "What I have told you is the public truth, if such a thing were ever made public. The unpredictable species, the mystery that frightens us. But there is a private truth, a truth that only the Elder Council knows, a truth that we have kept buried for 200,000 years." Stepped forward, "Tell us." Closed his dark eyes. "When we discovered that humanity kept defying our predictions, we did what any wise species would do. We tried to correct the problem." His hand moved to her weapon. "What do you mean, correct?" "Not what you think," raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "We did not try to destroy you. That would be against everything the believe. We tried something else, something we believed was more humane." He began to pace slowly, his long legs leaving deep prints in the gray dust. "We tried to guide your evolution, to shape it, to steer humanity away from its dangerous and unpredictable path toward something more stable, more controllable, more like the 1,000 other species we had successfully guided before." "You tried to change us," said flatly. "Yes, we introduced subtle genetic modifications through environmental changes. We influenced your development in ways you would never notice. We steered the growth of your civilizations toward patterns we understood." Stopped packing. "We did this for thousands of years. We used every tool and technique we had developed over 3 billion years of guiding species." "And it did not work," guessed. "No," the word was bitter in his mouth. "It did not work. Every intervention we made, every modification we attempted, every subtle push we gave your species, it all failed. But it did not just fail, it made things worse." He turned to face them, and for the first time saw something like desperation in those ancient eyes. "Every obstacle we placed in your path made you stronger. Every disease we thought would slow you down, you conquered. Every environmental challenge we created, you overcame. Every time we tried to guide you toward stability, you found a way around it and became more chaotic, more unpredictable, more powerful than before." His voice rose with emotion he had probably not shown in centuries. It was as if the universe itself was protecting you, as if some force we could not see or understand was watching over humanity and using our own interventions to make you better. "We tried to control you, and we only made you uncontrollable." Lowered her hand from her weapon. The anger she had felt was fading, replaced by something else, something like wonder. "You are saying we cannot be stopped," she said. "Not by prediction, not by intervention, not by anything." "I am saying we do not know if you can be stopped," corrected. "And that distinction is important. We do not know what you are. We do not know where you came from. We do not know why you exist. All we know is that everything we have tried to do to shape your species has failed, and we are out of ideas." Thought about this for a long moment. The cold wind blew dust around his feet. Above them, the stars burned in their ancient patterns, uncaring and eternal. "When did you stop trying?" he asked. "About 50,000 years ago," admitted. "The Elder Council decided that continued intervention was pointless and possibly dangerous. We from your solar system entirely. We created the law forbidding contact with your world. We hoped that by leaving you alone, you would eventually follow the natural patterns and become a normal species. But we did not." "No, you did not. You kept growing, kept evolving, kept surprising us." Laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Do you know what the final straw was? What made the Elder Council truly afraid?" "Tell us," said. "It was not your nuclear weapons. It was not your space travel. It was not even your artificial intelligence." Stepped closer to them, his dark eyes intense. "It was your stories." "Our stories," repeated confused. "Yes, your fiction, your myths, your dreams." Spread his hands wide. "Every species in the galaxy creates stories. It is a universal trait of intelligent life. But the stories of other species are limited by their experience. They imagine futures that fit within the patterns they know. They dream of possibilities that are extensions of their reality. He pointed at, "Your species is different. You imagine things that should be impossible. You dream of futures that break every rule. You write stories about gods and magic and powers that defy physics. You create visions of the future where everything is different, where anything is possible." Lowered his hand. "The Elder Council read your stories, they studied your myths, and they realized something terrifying. Humans do not just imagine impossible things, you make them real. Every generation you take the dreams of the previous generation and turn them into reality. Flight, space travel, machines that think. Things that were fantasy become fact." "That is just progress," said. "Every species makes progress." "No," shook his head firmly. "Other species make incremental progress, small steps forward based on what they already know. You make leaps. You jump from one impossibility to another with no logical path between them. You dream the impossible and then wake up and build it." He turned away from them, looking back at the dead star. "The Elder Council decided that this trait was the source of your unpredictability, your ability to imagine beyond reality and then reshape reality to match your imagination. It is something we have never seen in any other species. It is something we cannot predict or control or understand." Thought about everything humanity had accomplished, the fires they had learned to control, the seas they had learned to cross, the skis they had conquered, the atoms they had split, the stars they had reached for. Every step had seemed impossible until it was done. And then the impossible became normal, and humanity dreamed of new impossibilities. "So that is why you are afraid," she said slowly. "Not because of what we have done, because of what we might imagine next." "Yes," turned back to face them. "In 3 billion years, we have guided hundreds of species to stability and peace. We know how civilizations develop. We know the limits of growth and expansion. We know what is possible in this universe." He took a step toward them, his ancient form somehow both fragile and threatening. "But we do not know your limits. We do not know if you have limits. Every boundary we thought you would reach, you broke through. Every wall we tried to build around you, you found a way over or under or through. You are not predictable. You are not controllable. You are not like anything we have ever seen." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And that is the truth we have buried for 200,000 years. Not that humanity is dangerous. Any species can be dangerous. Not that humanity is powerful. Many species are powerful, but that humanity is unknown. Truly, completely, terrifyingly unknown." Stepped forward until he was face to face with the ancient. "Then, why are you telling us now? Why break your silence after all this time?" Met his gaze. "Because hiding did not work. Isolation did not work. You found your way to the stars on your own. You came to the Galactic Assembly on your own. You demanded answers on your own." He sighed, a sound like wind through empty halls. "And because I am tired, tired of carrying this secret, tired of being afraid of something I do not understand." He raised one thin hand and placed it on shoulder. The touch was light, almost weightless. "I am old, Ambassador. Even by standards I am old. I have lived with this mystery for my entire life, and I have come to believe that hiding from humanity was the wrong choice. Perhaps if we had faced you openly, we would have learned something. Perhaps we still can." Felt the weight of that hand, light as it was. The weight of billions of years of history. The weight of secrets kept for 200. "We are not your enemies," he said. "We are just people trying to understand ourselves." "I know," removed his hand. "And perhaps that is what frightens us most of all. You are just people. Small, short-lived, fragile people. And yet you do impossible things. If such a species can exist, what does that say about everything we thought we knew?" He turned and began walking away, his tall form fading into the gray dust. "Take what I have told you back to your people," he called over his shoulder. "Take it to the Galactic Assembly. The time for secrets is over. Whatever humanity is, whatever you are meant to become, the galaxy will have to face it together. Watched him go. Do you believe him? She asked quietly. Thought about it. He thought about the fear in his eyes, the pain in his voice, the weight of ages that seemed to press down on his thin shoulders. Yes, he said finally, I believe him. The question is what we do with what we have learned. Nodded, we tell the truth, all of it, and then we see what happens. They walked back to the horizon together, leaving footprints in the ancient dust. Behind them had disappeared into the gray landscape, carrying his burden of memories alone. But he was right about one thing. The time for secrets was over. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Assembly had never seen anything like it. The Great Hall, which had stood as a symbol of order and cooperation for thousands of years, was on the edge of chaos. Representatives from 800 species shouted at each other. Accusations flew like weapons. Alliances that had lasted crumbled in moments. And in the center of it all stood Ambassador, waiting for silence. He had told them everything, every word that had spoken on the dead moon, every secret that they had kept for 200,000 years, the failed predictions, the failed interventions, the fear that had driven the oldest species in the galaxy to hide the truth from everyone else. The reaction was volcanic. You kept this from us. The representative, a small creature covered in blue fur, was practically screaming at the delegation. 3 billion years of guidance, and you were lying to us the entire time. We did not lie, one of the younger representatives said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. We simply did not share certain information that we believed was too dangerous for. Too dangerous. The ambassador rose to his full height, his 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture of challenge. They were a warrior species, massive and powerful, who had been kept in check by diplomacy for centuries. You decided what was too dangerous. You decided what the rest of us could know. The younger had no answer. The other representatives sat in silence, their dark eyes fixed on nothing, their ancient faces unreadable. Watched the chaos with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. He had wanted the truth to come out, but he had not fully considered what that truth would do to the delicate balance of galactic politics. Ambassador appeared at his side, her voice low. We have a problem. Just one. A big one. The fleet has moved to battle positions. 3 other species are recalling their diplomats. They are threatening to withdraw from the accord entirely. She paused. And someone has been sending messages to the heavy encryption. We cannot read them, but they look urgent. Watched as 2 species he did not recognize began physically fighting in the upper galleries. Security forces moved in to separate them, but more fights were breaking out across the hall. This is falling apart faster than I expected, he admitted. Did you expect it to fall apart at all? Honestly, I did not think past getting the truth, sighed, a flaw in my planning. On the main floor, the representative had gathered a group of other ambassadors around her. They were talking intensely, gesturing toward the delegation. Whatever they were planning, it was not peaceful. We need to speak, said suddenly. I need to address the assembly again. Now, looked at the chaos around them. They are not exactly in a listening mood. Which is exactly why I need to speak. Pushed his way through the crowd toward the central platform. Behind him, Wu, and followed in a tight formation. It took several minutes for to reach the speaking position. When he activated the attention signal, the lights in the hall shifted to focus on him. The noise dropped slightly, but the anger remained. Representatives of the Galactic Assembly, said, his voice amplified to fill the massive space. I understand your anger. I share it. For 200,000 years, my species was kept in isolation because of secrets we did not even know existed. We have every right to be furious. Then why do you not let us be furious? The ambassador shouted from across the hall. Why do you stand there telling us to calm down? I am not telling you to calm down, said. I am telling you to think, because while we all stand here arguing about the past, we are ignoring something much more important." He paused, making sure he had their attention. "Ask yourselves, why now? Why did they hide this secret for so long, and why did one of their elders suddenly decide to reveal it? What changed?" The hall grew quieter. Even the ambassador lowered his arms slightly. "I wondered the same thing," continued. "So I asked my linguist to study the fragment of ancient history that we obtained from Lumen Prime. She has been working on it during our journey back here, and she found something." He gestured and stepped forward. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "The fragment we obtained was not just a historical record," said. "It was part of a larger document, a warning." She took a deep breath. "They did not just hide the truth about humanity. They hid another truth, a bigger one." She activated a holographic display, showing the ancient symbols she had translated. "They came to this galaxy 3 billion years ago. Before that, they lived somewhere else. Another galaxy far from here." She pointed to a section of text. "They left that galaxy because something was wrong with it, something they could not stop." What? The representative had stopped her plotting to listen. What could make the run? "Entropy," said simply. "The death of everything. According to this document, the universe is not just expanding. It is dying, slowly but definitely. Energy is draining away. Stars are burning out faster than they should. Eventually, everything will go dark and cold." The hall was completely silent now. "They discovered this 3 billion years ago," continued. "They ran calculations. They built models. They determined that the universe has a finite, and that is much shorter than anyone believed." She looked around the hall. "That is why they came here. That is why they built the Accord. That is why they have been guiding species toward stability for so long." She lowered her head. They were not building civilization. They were managing decline, keeping everyone calm and orderly while the lights slowly go out. Stepped forward. They accepted the end of the universe as inevitable. They decided the best they could do was make sure everyone lived peacefully until it was over. He let that sink in. But then they found Earth. They found a species that did not accept anything as inevitable, a species that broke every prediction and every limit. He turned to face the delegation directly. "That is why you were afraid of us, is it not? Not because we might threaten your power or disrupt your order, because we might actually try to fight the end, because we might actually believe we could win." The oldest in the delegation, a withered creature who had not spoken during the entire session, slowly rose to his feet. His voice was like dried leaves rustling in the wind. "Yes," he said, "that is exactly why." The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. "We have watched the universe die for 3 billion years, the old continued. "We have accepted our fate and tried to make peace with it. We have taught every species we guided to do the same. But humans," he shook his head slowly, "humans look at impossible problems and see challenges. They look at inevitable endings and see beginnings. They look at the death of all things and ask why it has to be that way." He turned to face the assembly. "We were not afraid of what humans might do to us. We were afraid of what they might do to our acceptance. We were afraid they might make us hope again." The hall was silent, felt the weight of what had been revealed pressing down on everyone present. "So what do we do now?" The representative's voice was small, stripped of its earlier anger. "If the universe is dying, if all of this is pointless, what do we do?" Looked at his team, at Steady and Watchful, at Wu, already thinking about engineering solutions, at Still holding her tablet full of ancient secrets, at Who had faced every danger without flinching. Then he looked at the assembly, at hundreds of species, each one facing the same terrible truth. "We do what humans have always done," he said. "We refuse to accept it. We look at the impossible and we say no. We fight. We dream. We imagine a future that should not exist, and then we build it." He stepped to the very edge of the platform. "They gave up 3 billion years ago. They accepted the end and stopped trying. But humanity is young. We have not learned to accept endings yet. Maybe we never will. He raised his hand toward the darkness beyond the crystal walls, toward the stars that burned in their ancient patterns. The universe is dying, then we save it. The lights are going out, then we light new ones. It cannot be done. Then we do it anyway because that is what we are. That is what we have always been. He turned back to the assembly. You can stand with us or stand aside, but humanity is going to fight for the future of everything, and we could use your help. The silence stretched on. Then slowly the representative rose from her seat. "The will stand with humanity," she said. One by one, other species rose. The ambassador, the rock creatures from the outer rim, the beings of light from the core worlds. Species that had never agreed on anything found common ground in this one impossible hope. And they sat in silence, watching, their ancient faces unreadable. But in their dark eyes, for the first time in 3 billion years, there was something new. Something that looked like hope.